Welcome to the Southwest Florida Real Estate Update, hosted by the York Group of Downing Fry Realty. Our show will bring you the most up-to-date information on the local real estate market, presented by leading experts in the field.
Welcome to the Southwest Florida Real Estate Update. I'm Morgan York with the York Group of Downing Fry, and today we're joined with our host Jim York and his guest Donald Ross Jr., President and CEO of Ross Title and Escrow.
Thank you, Morgan, for the introduction. Well, we're here at the Strand Country Club. We're going to have a little fireplace chat with Don Ross. We're not filming in the studio today because of the virus, and we're not open yet. But Don, thanks for coming on the show.
You are entirely welcome.
For the viewers that haven't seen you or heard of you, could you just give us a little background about yourself?
I'm a local attorney. I have a title company, Ross Title and Escrow. 7-8 employees. We've done 20 to 30,000 closings. I'm also the attorney for Downing Fry Realty, one of the owners. I've been the attorney for approximately 30 years, so I've seen a lot of the cases and issues and complaints and so forth that come in the door. I've been practicing law since 1981. I have a degree in taxation, so that comes in quite handy with the non-residents we have in Collier County. And I think that's about it, Jim.
Well, tell our viewers that we're moving next week, right?
Oh, we're having a fun-filled time packing and moving to the Galleria. We're moving on the 25th. It's going to be a little chaotic, but we're very excited. We're going to be located right in the heart of much of Naples. There's probably several thousand realtors in that area, and I'm actually quite excited about the change. Do a lot of podcasts and things like that, and have a little fun with it.
Don, let's talk about today. We're going to talk about what's positive that's going on, because we're still in the shutdown period here in Naples, not to the extent it is in other parts of the country. And then I'd like to roll into maybe inspections, because that's our main topic. But give our viewers a little update.
It is so much nicer being here than being almost anywhere in the country. I've got to say, I mean, I talk to people all over the country. My wife's family is up and down the East Coast. My family's up and down the East Coast. And we do Zoom every Sunday. I don't know if you've ever done this. But they're all locked down in Atlanta, in Maryland, in Virginia, in D.C., in Cape Cod, where my in-laws live. So when I look at how the rest of the country is living and how life is here in Collier and Marco Island, where I live, I kiss the ground that I'm here and not back where I grew up. And I know I've mentioned it before, but two of my kids in their 30s have moved here. My daughter's closing next month. One of my sons closed last October. So happy as a clam, and business is crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, getting to do this show was, my staff's going to shoot me that I'm here. It's crazy busy.
Well, we appreciate that.
No, I'm thrilled.
Last year we talked about inspections, and I know before the show we were talking about that you've been seeing some problems arising with some of the home inspections on sales.
Well, what I'm seeing, and probably in the last 2 weeks, I've had two of these contracts or offers being submitted to either a seller or a buyer, as the case might be, without anybody looking at them. And then after they're executed, because they're doing DocuSign, they'll just click on it and sign it. Or they're signing it late at night, which is always, I tell people, don't sign anything at 11:30 at night, you're half conscious. But they're signing things and not knowing what's in there. And I've had two where there were $5,000 credits given to the buyer. The seller didn't know. They didn't know that they were paying for title insurance. And in one case, the seller agreed, without knowing they agreed, that they were going to drill holes in the patio so they could put hurricane shutters in place. And I spent, oh my word, at least 3 weeks trying to talk people down off the ledge, people threatening not to close, people threatening to hire lawyers. So I guess the biggie, I would say, is at least look at the contract before you have your clients sign it. Don't do it late at night. Give them at least five minutes to read it. You know, if you have a seller, give them a blank contract beforehand so they have some knowledge of the inspection process. I mean, as you and I talk a lot while I'm in the car.
That's right.
So
yeah.
whenever, you know, I'm talking to you or anybody else, I'll say, start at the bottom of page 5 if it's NABOR, that's the inspection process. You know, you've got 15 days to do all your inspections, do as many as humanly possible. If you don't do them, you may lose the ability to complain about the issue later on. I mean, because there's language in the contract that if you don't raise a certain issue within a certain time frame, unless it's a latent material defect, which is governed by 35 years of case law, you lose that right. So I always make that point with my customers, my clients, that, yeah, it's a $500,000 transaction. I know you don't want to spend the money, but please get an inspection, please, because I don't want you to have to call me after you close and be upset that the air conditioner's broke or the dishwasher's broke or whatever is, or I didn't realize the roof was that old, you know, things like that. So I point them to that part of the contract, the bottom of page 5, which lists all the defective items.
Right.
And then the rest of page 6, which gives you the 15 days for your inspections, and I tell them get all of them. And when you get your initial report, by the way, usually, and tell me if I'm wrong here, they'll recommend more reports.
Right.
They'll say, we recommend a qualified
right.
HVAC person to come out and double check whatever it might be.
Right.
It's the buyer's responsibility to do that. So get all those things, and then you have 5 days to make your election. And the election can be either a credit or asking the seller to remediate it. If you're asking for a credit, you need a real live estimate. You don't just make up a number. You can't just say 5,000 without something to back it up. Something from somebody saying it's going to cost $5,000. Big thing I see after that is the buyers want an answer like in 5 minutes. I want an answer right now or I'm not putting my second deposit down.
Right.
The seller actually has 10 days to respond, and that 10 days is important. They can send their own person out and see if the first inspector was really right. When they said, say the hot tub was broken, is it really broken or could they just flip the breaker on? You know, there could be, or if there was an estimate, can I get another estimate and see is it really $5,000 to take care of that issue or is it $3,000? Did they get the most expensive guy in town or is this, you know, more reasonable? And will the buyer put the second deposit down during that 10-day period or not? So you use the time. I mean, people have a hard time, you know, they want instant gratification. They want an answer right away. The contract has different time periods in there. And if you don't use the time, people seem to get more emotional, more anxious. They're calling you more, they're calling me more.
You know, what I usually do is if I'm working with a buyer, I usually call our inspection guy. We have 2 that I work with because of scheduling, and I ask them how far out are you on inspections? Because once we do the contract, you know, if we have a 10 or 15 day period, we want to get them in there within 2 or 3 days after the contract so we have time to go back and get other estimates if there needs to be. Or have other inspections done. So again, it's all communication, it's all timing, like you said, and you know, the sooner you get it done, the easier it is in the process. Because a seller doesn't want to take his place off the market, you know, too long. So that's what, you know, basically what we're, you know, that's how we handle things there.
I mean, just in the last 24 hours, I've probably had this exact conversation 4 times. One was as I'm pulling in the garage last night. I had a very upset potential buyer. She's up in New York, outside of Syracuse, your stomping ground. And she just had it, and she can't understand why we can't negotiate a contract with the seller. And I told the realtor, I said, just let them sleep on it. Give them time. It's the end of the day. They're tired, they're anxious, they're stressed. This negotiation's been going on for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. You know, sometimes it's just good to just back off, let them relax, call them in the morning when they've had a good night's sleep, and calmly Because if you're not calm, they're not calm. Discuss what's best for that buyer.
On an as-is contract, you have the 10 or 15 days. The default is 15 days.
Right.
But do you have to go back to them within those 15? You don't have that 10-day grace period after
No.
that. So that's why in our previous conversation here, you were, maybe explain that, the difference between one contract and another, because I don't think that was clear.
I had that yesterday, actually. I had a realtor ask me, it's an as-is contract,
Right.
I think it was Nabor, and they used the buyer election form,
Right.
which is designed for the standard Nabor contract, not for the as-is contract.
That's right.
That particular form has language on the bottom of it that if the seller says no, the buyer has 5 days to cancel.
Yep.
They don't with an as-is contract.
Right.
If it's 15 days where the buyer can do whatever inspections they want, and that 15 days goes by without the buyer canceling, it's done, it's over, they can't cancel.
Yep.
Period, end of story. And a lot of folks don't understand that. And the question I got yesterday from the realtor was, well, they use the buyer election form to get a credit for us for, I think, mold or something, and now they're going in and checking something else. Do they still have the right to cancel, Don? I said, well, and I had the contract in front of me. They said, sure, they have actually until 11:59 Thursday,
Right.
tomorrow night. They have until tomorrow night to cancel. Even though they did, that we agreed to a credit for this other thing, even though you agreed to the credit for the other thing, they did not waive their right to cancel.
Right.
You have to specifically waive it for it to be gone. So if you're going to give somebody a credit during an as-is contract, which was a great question, by the way, I'm not just sucking up here, but if you're going to give somebody a credit or if you're going to agree to remediation during that 15-day period, assuming it's 15 days, make sure the buyer is waiving on the same addendum, if you're using an addendum,
Right.
Waiving the balance of the due diligence period, because you don't want them coming back for a second request.
Right.
I
That's
mean,
true.
you don't want the Chinese water torture where it's drop, 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 drop. Get it all done at once. We'll give you this if you waive, end of story.
Yeah, I think you've covered it very well, and I hope this helped our viewers here, and also, clients and buyers and sellers. And I'll just kind of wind it up here is that maybe, what we normally do is put an initial deposit on a contract if we're
Right.
working with a buyer, okay?
Right.
And then have a second deposit at 15 days or 16 days,
Sure.
when we have everything kind of cleared
And the
up
money
in there.
would go
Right.
hard anyways.
And typically we usually, from your experience and our experience, we use an as-is contract more frequently than we do a regular contract.
I use it with my kids for sure. And the other thing, if I could, there's a time period between when the contract's signed and you close.
Right.
In the last couple of years, that's when the threats start. I'm not going to close unless blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of finger pointing and whatnot, like
Yep.
when people don't read the contracts. And all I can say is, again, use that time. People are going to posture. It's not unlike litigation where they threaten till the cows come home. But on day of trial, guess what? It settles. Well, in my experience with the real estate closings, and I've seen this, and thank goodness I've done litigation because I can recognize the psychology of it.
Right.
They threaten to, the world will end as you know it unless I get what I want. I go, and then day of closing, it closes. But if the realtors aren't used to that, they get upset. And if they get upset, if they're the listing agent, the seller is going to get upset. So you got to realize it's just, they're acting.
Right.
They're acting.
Yep.
They're just making their best argument, and then day of closing is put up or shut up.
Well, Don, thanks for coming
You're
on the
welcome.
show. We'll see you next month, and thank you for viewers tuning in today, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thinking of buying or selling a home in Naples, Marco Island, Bonita, or Estero, Florida? Think of the most experienced York Real Estate Group, associated with the #1 brokerage in Southwest Florida, Downing Fry Realty, which produces yearly real estate transactions of over $1 billion. Jim, Michael, and Morgan make up the York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty, with over $275 million in sales transactions, along with offering over 25 combined years' experience in the local market. The Yorks can offer the experience and trust you need in a realtor. Call them today at 239-273-6727 or visit their website at www.naplesyorkrealestate.com.
Looking for a real estate closing agent in Southwest Florida? Ross Title and Escrow has over 25 years experience and has closed over 20,000 residential real estate transactions. Donald Ross Jr., president of Ross Title and Escrow and a practicing attorney in the state of Florida with a degree in taxation, is here to service your needs. Call Mr. Ross or one of our 4 closing agents for a free consultation today.